Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this MS Views and News Wellness Summit. All right, it's the first of its kind that we're doing in the Atlanta area. The company that sponsored today's event for the in-person aspect, and for most of it, obviously online as well, is SANDOZ Pharmaceuticals. Other than SANDOZ being our exhibitor as our primary sponsor, though, we have exhibit sponsors. We have Alexion, Banner, Life Sciences, Genentech, Horizon, Novartis, SANDOZ again, and TG Therapeutics. And we should give them all a round of applause for everything that they did, right? Okay, fabulous. Thank you. We have our first speaker today. Her name is Sarah Ikenberry. Sarah Ikenberry is the Senior Communication Advisor at the Food and Drug Administration, also known as the FDA. She's going to be speaking with you for about 20 minutes. And then after she's done presenting, we're going to go around the room and feed in the questions that are coming in from online. We'll do that for up to 10 minutes. Sarah, take it away. It's all yours now.
Thank you, Stuart. Happy to be here to talk about biosimilars today and give everyone just the basics about them. Okay, so biosimilars are a type of biologic medication, and they are safe and effective for the treatment of many conditions. And these are the conditions for which we currently have approved biosimilars. Chronic skin diseases like psoriasis, macular degeneration, chronic bowel diseases such as Crohn's and colitis, diabetes, arthritis, kidney conditions, and some cancers. So what is a biosimilar? It's very similar, but not identical to an original biologic medication, which at FDA and bureaucratic speak is called the reference product that FDA has already approved. And so I'm going to go into why it's highly similar and not identical in the next slide or two. But just to know that for them to be approved by FDA, the studies must show that there are no differences in the safety and effectiveness of the biosimilars as compared to the original biologic. And so both a biologic and a biosimilar are made from the same types of sources, which could be living sources like cells, proteins. They provide the same benefits when treating diseases or medical conditions. They're given at the same strength and dosage as the reference product, and they are not expected to cause new or worsening side effects. So what are biologic medications? Most biologics, as I just said, were made from living sources like animal cells and microorganisms like bacteria or yeast. Because biologics come from living sources, they naturally have differences, and they can be more complicated to produce than drugs made from chemicals like aspirin, and those can be more easily copied. And so I'm going to kind of liken that to how you would make bread from a recipe. You add the yeast, you add all of the things, and you use the recipe, but sometimes the bread loaf, it's still bread, still tastes the same, but maybe it looks a little different. So that's kind of a little analogy for biologics. And so because most biologics are made from living sources, it is normal for both the biosimilar and the original biologic to have minor differences between batches of the same medication. This is expected. And this is monitored for. But it also means that biologics cannot be exactly copied. And that's why biosimilars are not identical to the original biologic. However, FDA does carefully review any differences between the original biologic and the biosimilar, just as we monitor differences between batches of the original biologic, just to ensure that they're safe and effective. So one way you can think about biosimilars is through like generics. Now, biosimilars and generics are both versions of medications already approved by FDA. They can be made by multiple companies, which lowers their cost. They can also both offer affordable treatment options to more patients. So you can see in the chart comparing biosimilars to generics that biosimilars are made from living sources, generics made from chemicals. Biosimilars require a more specialized process to produce them. Think of like beer or wine. It's more similar to that. And then generics have a simpler process to copy. Biosimilars are very similar but not identical, whereas generics are a copy. They both offer faster development process, which can help lower the cost, and hopefully they're usually less expensive. And so speaking of less expensive, will they save you money? So similar to generics, biosimilars may cost less because manufacturers rely on FDA's finding that the original biologics are safe and effective. So they don't have to produce the large-scale clinical trials that the biologic does because the biosimilar is highly similar and has no clinically meaningful differences, which means it will work the same way. And so the lower cost is not a reflection of the safety or effectiveness of the biosimilar. And because of the lower cost, biosimilars may be covered by merit insurance companies and offer additional treatment options to patients. I can say FDA does not do the drug pricing part of the biosimilars. So you would have to contact your insurance company. We are seeing that they are definitely lower cost on the formularies, but whether or not that savings is being passed on to the patient is very varied. And so again, biosimilars are safe and effective. We review all the data provided by the pharmaceutical company, and we take a number of steps to ensure that all biosimilars meet standards for patient use. And this is the same thing we do for all medications. And so we review the data and studies and tests to decide whether a biosimilar meets the high standards for approval. We also ensure that manufacturers show there are no differences in side effects, including in the side effects that the biosimilar are not more frequent or more severe than those of the original biologic. We continue to check on the quality of the biosimilar production. And I also want to reiterate that the quality is not abbreviated. While the biosimilar manufacturers do not have to do large-scale clinical trials, all of the quality considerations are exactly the same as they are for any other medication and for the original biologic. In addition, FDA is always monitoring reports from patients and healthcare providers about all medication safety and effectiveness, and so that would include biosimilars as well. And so why would you switch to a biosimilar if you are on an original biologic? One of the things to note that a biosimilar is not safer or more effective than the original biologic, but a patient might switch because of a change in insurance coverage or to save money. It might just be what's on the formulary, and it just might be what a hospital or institution has available. And then depending on state law, there's something called an interchangeable biosimilar that a pharmacist may give you in place of the original biologic, depending on the state, similar to how you would fill a prescription for antibiotic or another drug and get the generic at the pharmacy. And so, as with all treatment decisions, patients should always talk to your healthcare provider and then check trusted sources of information, related to your specific condition to learn more. And, the FDA's role in all of this is just to really provide some basic education about biosimilars and what they are. And we have a lot more detailed information on our website that you can find about the approval process, including labeling, published studies, and other stuff. And I'll go into that when I get to the resource section. Interchangeable biosimilars. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time explaining what those are because there's a lot of confusion about those products. And they are a biosimilar that may be substituted without consulting the prescribing doctor because it meets additional requirements related to pharmacy substitution or related to the potential for automatic substitution. So the practice is called pharmacy level substitution and is subject to state law. I do want to reiterate, though, that both biosimilars and interchangeable biosimilars are both as safe and effective as the original product they were compared to. A biosimilar or an interchangeable biosimilar is not more highly similar, it's not more safe, it's not more effective. It's not clinically different. So pharmacy level substitution, as we've talked about, is where they can be substituted at the pharmacy. So you get a prescription, you go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist might substitute the interchangeable biologic for the reference product or the original biologic, and then you receive that. And so not all biosimilars are interchangeable. This is something that the companies request approval for as a biosimilar or interchangeable biosimilar. So they have to indicate which one they're applying for in the application. So FDA does not review and then make a decision about whether or not it's biosimilar or interchangeable biosimilar. If the company has not asked for that review. And there's many reasons why companies may not submit for an interchangeable biosimilar, because it does require an extra level of information that they have to submit, and it's only meant for pharmacy substitution. And for example, drugs administered at a hospital or an outpatient facility, you're not getting you're not going to CVS and getting those medications. So the company may not want to apply as an interchangeable in that case and would only apply as a biosimilar. But there's a lot of other different reasons, such as other business reasons that they may make that decision as well. And so what are the differences between biosimilar and interchangeable biosimilars? They both meet the same high standard of biosimilarity and are both as safe and effective as the original biologic. The only difference is the interchangeable biosimilar may be substituted at the pharmacy. And like I explained a little bit ago, that many manufacturers do not seek interchangeable status because it's only relevant to pharmacy level substitution, which depends on the state pharmacy laws. And they can both be used in place of the original biologic. So now I'm going to go over some resources and materials that are available. First, we have the Purple Book. So this is the database of all FDA licensed or approved biological products. And so this includes original biologics, biosimilars, interchangeable biosimilars, cell and gene therapies, vaccines. All of those are types of biologic products that you could find information about in the Purple Book. And in the Purple Book, there's a simple search and advanced search. And so there's a lot of different capabilities. And you can easily see information such as the patient label or the labeling and other information related to the products in there. We also have a lot of resources for providers. We have fact sheets, videos, continuing education courses through Medscape, a full curriculum toolkit that can be used to help teach and integrate into any kind of a training healthcare provider program. So that's a pretty full toolkit of options for that has two different levels, sort of a basic foundational level and then a more in-depth scientific and regulatory level. There's PowerPoints, discussion questions, information sheets, case studies, a whole lot of stuff that provides a nice, more detailed look at biosimilars if you're interested. We have a lot of other materials that we work with other stakeholder organizations, such as the United States Pharmacopoeia, the Federal Trade Commission, who's very interested in making sure that there's not misinformation about biosimilars and that people have factual and unbiased information. Resources for patients. We're actually going to be releasing a lot of new resources for patients on Monday. You can see a snapshot of the fact sheet there on the left. We have one specific for patients with diabetes, but we have a general one that's applicable to anybody who might be on a biologic product or want to learn more about biosimilars. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Good morning. Just to make sure I understand, so a biologic and generic, are those terms used interchangeably, or is it two separate things?
They are two separate things because there's regulations that govern biologic products, and then there's different regulations that govern generic or the products that are what they're called small molecules. And so they're not the same, but the intention is the same.
Okay, so then say for instance, I have a prescription. So when you go to the pharmacy, is the understanding is that they're going to have the biologic or the generic, or do you have to ask for that?
So it would work similar to the generic in that a biosimilar could be substituted for the original biologic. So if you are on, let's say, a huge one that is getting ready to come to pharmacies and is already started is let's talk about Humira. So Humira is a drug, an anti-TNF inhibitor drug for arthritis, psoriasis, and a bunch of other indications. So that medication has not had any biosimilars competition until this past January. In the summer, there's going to be a lot more. So you would get your doctor could provide a prescription for Humira, the brand product. And when you get to the pharmacy, depending on your insurance coverage, the pharmacist could substitute the biosimilar of Humira for Humira And so that would be similar to a generic. Like if your doctor writes for the brand and then you go to the pharmacy and they give you the generic, it's like the same scenario. And so that's how that would work. Now, your doctor might not know that. Like the pharmacy may call your doctor or they might not have to. That sometimes depends on state pharmacy laws. Another scenario is that you could ask your doctor about the biosimilar, or you could ask your pharmacist about the biosimilar if there is one available and if it will save you money. And then you could talk to your healthcare provider about whether or not that's an option you want to pursue.
Okay, I'm going to take a question from the back of the room. If that person has more questions, I'll be back up there in a few minutes.
Hi, I heard you speaking about the FDA Purple book, and I just want to know where we get that book from.
Well, so the book, it's not an actual book. It's online, and it's purplebooksearch.gov. I think it's .gov. But if you Google Purple Book Search, it will come up. And so it's a database. It's a virtual book, and you can look up products that you're currently on. If they're a biologic, they'll be there. There's sort of the sister book is called the Orange Book, and that's where the small molecule drugs are. So if you were going to look up antibiotics, or I think a common maybe treatment for MS is methotrexate. Methotrexate could be found in the Orange Book, but if you were on Tresiba, you would find that in the Purple Book because it's a biologic.
All right, questions that somebody handed me is, which biologics are for multiple sclerosis?
So I think you're going to have a neurologist on later that can probably speak more about all of the different biologics available for the treatment of multiple sclerosis. Like I know that Tresiba is a popular medication, and it currently is slated to go off patent. So a biosimilar can't be made until a drug is off patent and exclusivity and all these things. Same with generics. And so I do know that that particular biologic is slated to be off patent this year. So biosimilar competition could be possible. We can't speak to actual pending applications at the agency, but
okay. Then the person also asked, is there a prescription required for that medication? And how is it administered?
So this is a great question, and one that I probably need to put in the actual presentation. So a biosimilar is written a prescription just like the original biologic. So if let's say there is, let's just use the Humira example. There's Humira and then there's biosimilar Humira. The doctor would write a prescription for Humira, and if they wanted to give you the biosimilar, they would have to write a prescription for biosimilar Humira. If there's interchangeable Humira, the doctor would write, he could write the prescription, or she could write the prescription for interchangeable Humira, but if they wrote the prescription for the brand Humira, then they go to the pharmacy to fill it, and depending on the patient's insurance, the pharmacist could fill it with the interchangeable Humira. But the biosimilar does need a prescription.
Okay, are there any more questions out there? If not, I'm going to take a few of them from online, and then we'll move on. All right, are there any okay, so the person wrote, are there any biosimilars for MS medications? But you just did answer that. All right, anything else? Anybody else have a question out here? All right, then last call. One person just raised their hand. Almost down to 4, 3, 2, 1. Ready?
Do we know if the pharmacy is substituting a biological instead of the actual prescription that was written?
So you would know by the packaging. I don't, I would hope that the pharmacist would let you know, but in today's world, there's not, there's a lot of, staff shortages and other things like that. But if you get the biosimilar, like the label, the patient label, like the package insert that you would open up, and it has tiny little print and all of this stuff, there's what's called a biosimilarity statement in there, and it would say this product is biosimilar to whatever the reference product is. And then you would see on the packaging that the name is different. So that would be like how you would know that you were on a biosimilar, you know, in addition to hopefully your pharmacist would let you know, hey, this was filled with a biosimilar, or an interchangeable biosimilar and not the brand product that was written.
Okay, thank you. One more question.
You may have answered this, but I don't remember hearing you. The biosimilar and the generic brand, are the makeups the same? Are they both chemically based, or is one based on a plant base or some other type of a base of product?
So the biosimilar is made from the same type of sources as the biologic, and those are generally natural and living sources, whereas a generic is made from the same chemicals as the brand product, and those are like called small molecules. So those are chemicals, they're not from like cells or proteins or other living sources. So that's sort of the difference there.
Any other questions in the back? Okay, well then, Sarah, I want to thank you for coming online with us. Now you can go play with your children and have a great day. Thank you again for everything.